Greetings fellow Earthlings and welcome to this tiny garage. You may recognize this toolkit from last week. It's not the right toolkit. It's for a 3-chain engine. We have a 5-chain engine. We need something a little more like this. Now in here we do have the TDC alignment pin in the center there. That's Porsche tool 9612. We need that guy. And then that's the camshaft support. Special tool 9634. That's the main one we didn't have last week to hold the cams in place. Then this is Porsche tool 9611 for holding the cams in place when we're putting it all back together. And this little fella, again, I'm really not sure what you do with this one, but I know it's for when it's all back together and you're trying to put the final timing onto the cams. So we have a bit more learning to do with that guy. And these ones in the back are for when we're trying to get the cams and the pistons all back in and lining them up through the engine block. A bit more learning to do on those before I fully understand it. All right, step 1, we need to find top dead center on bank 2. So cylinder 4 right there. If you are not sure what I'm doing, there is a whole episode on it. Episode 4 will go into finding top dead center and doing a leak down test and all that good stuff. Now that I've found top dead center, I need to lock top dead center. Now the pin that came with the 5-chain engine toolkit, pin 9612, did fit much better. Next we have the cam bore plugs. Thank you Thomas Jodzio for recommending this tool. It is perfect, makes easy work of it. You just stab them through the soft center and they come out very easily. Intake camshaft position check. So we did get everything into top dead center, but if you want to take everything apart and take the cylinder heads off, you need to get that little notch in the cam there facing towards the engine block for bank 2. So you turn the crankshaft through 360 degrees, relock it in TDC, and you're good. Next, we have the camshaft chain tensioner. That is that large 32mm there. We keep on screwing it, and eventually it'll sort of pop out because it's spring-loaded, and it is providing a constant tension on the chain inside the engine block there. Camshaft support. So this is that tool we didn't have last week. 9634 is the Porsche special tool number. You get 2 of these tools, one for bank 1 and one for bank 2. And what I found here is that they're both set up to be either bank 1 or bank 2. They both have the same orientation. And so I needed to take the bolts out and put them through the opposite direction. And that made it that it could fit onto bank 2. Those are the same H6 bolts as you use for the clutch pressure plate. And then to attach the tool itself to the engine block, I'm using one of the H6 clutch pressure plate bolts. All right, so once I got all those swapped backwards and put it on, it seemed to be in the right orientation now, which is great. The idea then would be that you just tighten down those H6 bolts on either side and then they touch the cams and hold them, but they didn't. In the end, what I had to do is put the nuts on the end of those screws all the way out, and then it had enough reach to be able to clamp against those cams and touch them. The nuts on the end of those screws are just the right diameter to be able to fit into the circular shape on the end of those cams and hold them in position. If you're enjoying these videos and you'd like me to make more, the best way to tell me is to click that subscribe button. The VarioCam sealing plate. I like this one because it's really easy. Just 2 10mm there. And you notice that VarioCam has a light cream color to it. The VarioCams have different colors so you know which side is which. We'll go into that when we're putting it all back together. The oil return pump. This one again, pretty easy. It's a very tight fit, and so I'm putting some WD-40 on there to help my future efforts to get it out. Just 4 10mm on that one. So last week on bank 1, I figured out this method was a good idea to get the pump out, and I didn't use it for the entire time last week, so this time I tried to use it till the bitter end, and it was very helpful. Just took a little bit of wiggling at the end to get it off. I have been told by Dominic McCartan in England to tell you guys that those pumps are made in England. I hope that makes you happy, Dominic. All right, the AOS connector. This could have been taken off earlier. I'd recommend you certainly take it off now. It gets in the way when you're trying to lever off the cylinder head cover. Now the cylinder head cover itself. Again, liberal doses of WD-40 just to make everything nice and easy. There are 23 10mm bolts on the cylinder head cover. And then like last time, I'm just using a hammer on the various little corners that it has that you can lever on to get that off. Pretty soon you could feel it starting to move. I'm just trying to be patient and just do a little bit at a time. You could really feel it moving at this stage. It just didn't want to come off. Wahee! And again, that one looks clean, normal wear apparently from the people that I asked about it on Facebook. Okay, here we are at the cylinder head. Now down in that corner, I was wondering what the number would be, and it does match the cam caps. And so that obviously does mean something. That number is telling you what cams are supposed to go with that cylinder head. All right, next we have to undo the cam caps. Those are H5s, 2 on each cap. And then a little flathead screwdriver to get those up. They're quite tight, but once they start moving, it's very easy. Okay, onto the VarioCam tensioner. Now before I take the cams out, which we're getting really close to doing, and even though I do now know that there are timing marks on the cams, I'm just going to mark it with old-fashioned whiteout. Just as I learn more about this setup, I want the opportunity to see how it was when I took it out and see if that was part of the problem as I learn more about the system. Here I'm putting a zip tie on the tensioner right underneath the cam pad to hold everything together. Alright, so the cam caps are off, the tension is off the cams on the left-hand side, and so we can take off the cam support tool. The camshaft primary chain sprocket is this fella right here. We need to undo those 4 10mm, and that just pushes off to the side, like towards the camera, in the position we're in right now. And then once I get it to come off, those slots open up right next to where the bolt holes are, and I'm passing through a zip tie. In the shop manual, it recommends using large rubber bands. I had difficulty trying to find large rubber bands, to be honest, but I do feel that these zip ties do a better job. The idea is just to stop it from falling out and stop it from losing what tooth it's currently on. Okay, the camshafts themselves, really very little to it now, everything's undone. However, I did find the problem. So if you look here, the brown plastic is the VarioCam pad, and it has a crack in it, and it also has a chunk missing off of it. And so you can see up there, there's a new one, and that's what happens to them. And that track, the 2 tracks that have been worn in it, eventually kill it. So there's the crack. And then you might notice that that has a lump on the left-hand side of it, and it's completely missing on the right-hand side. And so that's got munched up in the engine, and that's what all of those pieces were that we found in the oil. All right, onto the lifters. Just cleaning them up as best as possible here so that when we put the Sharpie on there, we stand a chance of it staying. And here I'm marking what the cylinder is. Bank 2 is 4, 5, and 6. And then the top row is all the intake cam. The bottom row is all the exhaust cam. And then we've got 4 valves per cylinder, so we've got 2 ins and 2 outs. And so I'm marking whether they're left or right in each of those positions. Then bag-wise, after learning the problem from last time, I am putting them all into individually marked bags due to the oil taking off the Sharpie on bank 1. Next up is the valve lifter housing. It's a cage type device that holds all those lifters in position. There are 15 H5 screws on this thing. Unlike last time, I'm not trying to take them all out. If they come out, I'm taking them out. But I'm trying to be cool here, just leave them all in. And then when they're all undone, I'm going to see if I can just lift the whole cage out in one go, because that would be cool and quick. Hey, it worked. So do that, folks.
Hit the notification bell. It's up there.
Yes, please. The chain guide bolt. You can see really easily here that brown looking chain guide. It is going to stay with the engine block, and so to get the cylinder head off, we need to detach this bolt so that that guide is not being held onto the cylinder head with anything. Okay, now the cylinder head itself, I can't believe it. It seems so easy doing this the second time compared to the mystery of the first time. On the outside of the cylinder head, we do have these 3 H5s. Moving into the cylinder head itself, liberal WD-40. One thing about that is everyone said, oh yeah, it's to get it loose. And yes, WD-40 definitely can help to get it loose if it gets time to penetrate and all that. But another reason for using it is if bolts are rusty or dirty, as you take the screws off, especially with the electric wrench, it can generate so much heat from the friction of all that dirt and rust that you can snap the head off the bolt. And so using the WD-40 is for that also. It helps lubricate the threads as you take the bolt off. Now on the cylinder head, we just have these huge T55 bolts that go all the way through to the engine block. 4 of those per cylinder, so 12 bolts on this cylinder head itself. Those T55s have a lot of torque on them. Takes a bit of effort. I have to hold on to the engine stand with my foot. All right, the final bolt, which would be very annoying if you didn't know this existed. It's just a little H5 right in there next to the chain guide. All right, to get the cylinder head off, I'm just liberal WD-40 for whatever help it can give us getting into the little cracks and crevices. It did take quite a bit of jiggling to get this to break loose. In the end, the cylinder head gasket kind of got a little stuck onto the block there. So looking at the valves themselves, everything looks pretty good. Nothing hit anything. Just looks dirty but normal. And then looking here, the pistons, I mean, when we first got this engine, I was worried they would be smashed to pieces and we'd have terrible bore scoring and smashed cylinder walls and stuff like that. But looking at this thing, I mean, it's not very pretty, but the cylinders themselves, the linings of the cylinder are lovely. They are like glass. Any of you who are watching the Bank 1 video, there was a mystery line. These guys seem to have a little bit of a mystery line too. I've been informed that that is where the join of the top ring is, and it just can't help but leave a little bit of a mark on the bore. So again, really good news. I'm very happy to find that the engine is complete. It seems really that the problem with the engine was that the VarioCam pads were not replaced, and if you do that, it will put the timing out enough that the car will run rough. Here I'm attaching the primary chain sprocket to the chain guide just to keep everything under tension and look cool. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time.